my name is Nada, and I am a student of life, a traveler on the spiritual path, an explorer on the journey of self-discovery. And that is to say that I am continually learning and discovering, growing and evolving. And what I share here in these videos are my personal observations, insights, and realizations that I uncover along the way. Now, it does occur to me that there may be some who might look to me as a sort of spiritual teacher. And personally, I find that designation a bit uncomfortable or unfitting. I think of what I'm doing more in terms of sharing than teaching. And also, when we think of someone as a teacher, we tend to think of them as someone who is expert and authoritative, which is to say that we tend to accept whatever they say as if it's a matter of fact. And I would encourage you not to accept anything I say as true. Certainly take it into consideration, but then see if you can verify it through your own observation and experience. And I would actually encourage you to do this in regard to anyone, even with those who do present themselves as teachers, even with those who we consider enlightened. That is, not to blindly accept anything, but to find out for yourself. And so if you feel that you need to give me some kind of designation, I would much more prefer that you think of me as a student. And I say that to emphasize that I don't know everything there is to know. I don't have it all figured out. I don't have all the answers. And even what I do share, as I said, is based on my own personal experience and observation, all of which has its own limitations. And so I may only understand something to a certain degree beyond which there is still more to learn and discover. Or given my limited perspective, my observation may be skewed or obscured or inaccurate at times. Sometimes I might just be completely wrong, which is all something to keep in mind. And so again, I encourage you, don't assume that what I'm saying is true. Find out for yourself. Ultimately, you have to discover these things for yourself. And this is what I try to encourage the most, that you explore these things in yourself and see what you discover. All I'm really offering is another perspective, something to take into consideration, something to provoke you to look at things differently or more deeply. But I'm no guru, I'm not an expert, I'm not enlightened, and so there are limitations to what I know. And I try to stay within the limits of my own experience and understanding. I try to stay away from talking about things that are outside of my current experience. And if I do happen to venture beyond that point, I will try to be clear with you that I am entering the realm of speculation. But what is within my experience, what I've been through and what I've discovered along the way, that's what I tend to share. That's where the inspiration comes from. And so perhaps you might simply think of me as a fellow traveler on the spiritual path. You know, we're all on our own individual journeys, but in some sense, it's the same journey. And I think it can be very helpful sometimes when we share with one another what we're discovering along the way. It can be very helpful to hear someone else's perspective. Sometimes that helps to clarify or expand our own perspective. And so we're all on this journey. We're all in that process of awakening, and we're all at different places on the path. But sometimes it may be that someone has been through some particular region of the terrain that we now find ourselves in, and it can be helpful to hear their experience with that. And not that our experience is going to be exactly the same, but there may be some similarities. There may be something in there that could be beneficial to us. One of the things that really inspires me to share in this way is I think back on my own journey. And I've been on this journey for a very long time, but a lot of that time could have been better utilized. And to offer a metaphor, we can think of the spiritual path as a trail taking us through the woods. but it's not a straight path. And all along the way, there are all these other smaller paths leading off in all directions. And if you're anything like me, you might be curious to see where some of those side trails lead. But sometimes they just wind up being dead ends, or sometimes they wind up getting very thick and taking you through the bramble and briar, through dense brush where there's poison ivy everywhere and snakes hiding in the leaves, and it can be quite treacherous. Or perhaps you wander off the trail and into the mud where you get stuck for a time. And yet somehow I've always managed to find my way back to the main trail. But in all of this, I've wasted a lot of energy, or gotten sidetracked or distracted, or went through a lot of unnecessary struggle and strife. And sometimes I think if someone had just offered me a certain perspective or some clarity, or pointed out some of those pitfalls, or whatever it might happen to be, it might have saved me a lot of trouble. And I see a lot of people on their own journeys struggling and stumbling, or getting stuck, or straying down side trails that don't go anywhere. Or there may be many misconceptions and misinterpretations, and even some misinformation. You know, there's actually quite a great deal of nonsense in the spiritual culture. There's a lot of pseudo-spirituality. There's a lot of egotism and materialism disguised as spirituality. And some of it is very popular precisely because it appeals to the ego. And we can often find ourselves inhibiting our own growth and awakening by getting caught up in all that nonsense. And I think if I can offer anything at all that might be helpful, if I can offer some perspective that perhaps hasn't been considered, or some encouragement or assurance, or if I can point out a pitfall on the path or some common misconception, if I can offer anything which might be helpful to others on their journey, then why would I not do that? And I know that sometimes we just have to go through all of that in order to learn and to grow. Sometimes we just have to make mistakes, or get lost for a little while, or go through some kind of challenge in order to come out stronger and wiser. But maybe some of that is completely unnecessary, or maybe even just to hear someone share about how they went through something similar can offer us some encouragement as we go through it ourselves. What I'm offering here, you can take it or leave it. Take what is useful and discard the rest. Not everything I offer is for everyone, but perhaps there might be something in there that you can make use of. I don't expect that everyone who sees these videos is going to benefit. It may be that some of this simply doesn't apply to you and your experience. Or it may be that it does, but you just aren't ready to hear it. Certainly there will be those who find no benefit at all from this, or who disagree or simply misunderstand, and that's fine. I'm not invested in everyone agreeing or understanding. But if there are some, or even just one person, who understands and benefits in some way, then it's worth the time and effort. What it really comes down to, I suppose, is that in some sense we're all in this together, and the least we can do is share with one another, to offer our insights and to support and encourage one another's growth. So with all that said, I do hope you find something of value in all of this. May you continue to awaken more and more with each moment, and as you do, may you become a source of encouragement and inspiration to others on the path. If you find value in this content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe.